Originally, I was running a plumbing and heating business, and I installed my first ground source heat pump in 2003, and did solar thermal with that. And on the back of that, I thought, oh, this has all got legs. This all works. And we did our first PV system in 2007. And on the back of that, East Green Energy was created as a renewable energy only business. I dropped my Corgi gas regs, and I dropped the oil off-tech regs, or Corgi at the time, is now gas safe obviously, and just went straight for only renewables. We did heat pumps, biomass boilers and solar PV. We still do those three technologies primarily, and back in 2015 I bought out an electrical contracting business as well, because I could see that the world was going electric, whether it's electric cars, electric heating, it's all driven, heat pumps, it's all driven by electricity. So that was sort of a strategic business decision that we made. And now we're pushing more. We still do residential work, but we're now pushing much more towards commercial systems, and we're doing more commercial PV than anything else. But we do commercial biomass boilers. It was my question early on into the lady about the district heating systems. They now want, if we're going to do a district heating system, if we want any grant funding, it's got to be to 100 houses. And we've just had that conversation about developers and what they will or won't tolerate. But it's mostly we're focusing on commercial PV. If I click that there, I need to turn around and make sure it's changed. Yeah. So it's predominantly businesses are now looking at reducing their carbon footprint. And the reason for that is obviously because of climate change. And they're being driven by government to do this. That's when we talk to the environmental officer as the first person that calls and says we want solar PV, and we go, yeah, that's absolutely fine. We'll get on and put a quote together. Then the finance director gets involved, and the brakes all get put on. They go, well, what's in it for us? I get the carbon savings, but it's coming out of our budget. How are we going to fund it? So we then have to talk to them about the savings off the electricity bill, and also you now get paid much more generously than you get for your export. You probably get paid 3.5p for your export. The utility companies are now paying 9p for export. You're contracted for your 25 years, so you can't leave your.
I do get my 50p.
You do get your 50p, yeah, but
Makes it almost
yeah.
bearable.
So if you're replacing an electricity, but if you're replacing bought electricity from stuff that you're generating yourself, you're saving 15 to 20 pence now. But if you send it out to the grid will pay you 9p for it. So even on that basis,
Has that gone up then?
it's traded, it's brokered now, and you could get a contract for 9p going forward for the next 12 months. If you go back a couple of weeks, it was being traded at 28 pence a kilowatt, because this is how short we are of they wanted to turn the gas grid off, and they wanted to buy electricity, so they want you to turn your consumption off and sell the electricity back to them. So it's traded in real live time, and this is how batteries are all funded, in terms of taking electricity off the grid at slack times and putting it back on at peak times. So it's an interesting and quite an exciting area of renewables that isn't really talked about, but that's where we're at currently in live time. And we do mostly that changed good. So far so good. So we do 4 types of PV. There's only 3 up there. Obviously you all know about roof mounted, you know about ground mounted PV systems. We do floating solar as a speciality within East Green Energy, and that is one of our growth areas, but also it's a specialism. Nobody else in East Anglia does it. There's only 2 or 3 others in the UK that do it. So typically we use farmers' reservoirs. Their irrigation pumps run on electricity. They've got a 90 kilowatt irrigation pump. We stick 90 kilowatts of PV on floating pontoons out into the middle of the reservoir. It takes up no more land. Planning consent is done under permitted development. We've got most of them, or all of that we've done so far, we've got through as permitted development, because it sits on the reservoir with a great big bunded wall outside, and that you can't see it from anywhere unless you're flying a drone over. And we also do thin film solar, which is where the panels are stuck onto typically a zinc roof where they have the raised seam. part of a planning consent usually, and the thin film is stuck directly onto that. So that's another string to our bow. So I don't know if you've been to the Notcuts Garden Centre in Norwich, but that's one of our PV systems. 150 kilowatts of PV, saves 40 tonnes of carbon a year to them, knocks about £20,000 a year off their electricity bill. So that's the driver. We're saving they can say their environmental credentials by the reduction of the of carbon, and the finance director is pleased because we're knocking so much money off their electricity bill.
To interrupt you, can we ask that? I say I'm planning one's been at things that to do the Port One Business Park at Great Blakenham.
Yeah.
They got shed loads of great big sheds.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think of the Gateway 14 plans that Mid Suffolk has,
Mm-hmm.
I think the best we've ever got as an offer is the roofs are PV ready.
Right.
Right? Means you can imagine they might get panels fitted on them sometime in
Yep.
the future. So why don't people do it? I mean, the story I've heard is that the tenants get the benefit, and,
Yep.
and the person who holds the lease pays to have the panels fitted, so it doesn't happen.
So depending on how long a lease you've got, and certainly the landlords that we're dealing with are recharging their electricity back to the tenant. So you're getting the carbon saving, whether the tenant is getting the carbon saving or the landlord is getting the carbon saving, that is up for discussion. But certainly the tenant is recharged for the electricity, and so the landlord pays them for the panels on the roof, and the tenant will pay them for the electricity. If the tenant pays them on the roof, then the tenant would get the electricity. So either or. So if it's a large consumer of electricity, then the payback is much shorter. If it's all being exported, so you're replacing a 20 pence kilowatt, payback shorter. If you're exporting the electricity and being paid 9p a kilowatt for it, the payback is twice as long, obviously. Just going back to the slides. It's all right. No, interrupt me whenever you do, but if they want us to speak into the microphone, then let's do as we're told. This job is in London near the XL Exhibition Centre. You can just see the cable car going across the top there. So this was a very prestigious job for us. It was great fun to do. Plenty of headaches. It was very high. It's 6 containers stacked on top of each other. It's a containerised building, modular building, using old containers repurposed for this. The PV panels you can see in the middle are ballasted on using concrete blocks, and then around the edge there's a facade all the way around the outside, and we've used the PV to shade the windows underneath, so that offers cooling to the building as well. I've got it over there, look. Wickham Vineyard, that's in one of your parishes, stroke boroughs. Yes. So it's a large electricity user both on the farm with the irrigation system and the vineyard and the restaurant itself as well. There's 150 kilowatts of PV we put there, 150 kilowatts of irrigation pump. That was the main reason that they had the PV, was to offset their irrigation costs. And it's a great synergy between summertime use of irrigation pump, summertime generation of PV. So again, I think we're talking.
All the times I've been to Wickham, I've never noticed. All the times I've been to Wickham Vineyard, I've never seen it. So have we? So it must be really well hidden.
Yes, and again, it was because it's a ground-mounted PV system. It's a full planning application. The house there is listed, so very careful consideration of where you're siting them. It's actually sited beside the bund of the irrigation reservoir there, yeah. But it's very well hidden. And again, there was a full environmental study had to be done as to when we installed the PV system, time of year, and everything else, making sure that we weren't upsetting any ecological habitat. It was all taken care of within the planning consent. Yeah, so at Wickham, again, 40 tonnes of the CO2 saved, just running off their PV, running off the PV system. The next one is our floating solar at Ravenium. So you can see the water there, PV panels. Just
Oh, yeah.
it's it,
Can I ask, do the birds think it's water and go crash bang wallop on it?
no, but they do. We get a lot of bird poo on it.
That destroys it then.
So no, we don't get them crash landing on it. We do get bird muck on the panels, and we've developed a spray system that runs off electricity off the PV panels, runs the spray system. So we run little sprayers over them to keep the birds from pooing on them. Yeah, they tend to land on the water beside it, and then use it as a roost.
Yeah.
Yes, but we
Chickens there, they do.
but we found a way of overcoming that. This is 90 kilowatts of PV, 90 kilowatts of irrigation pump, 25 tons of carbon. It's all a bit of a no-brainer. And then again, the design considerations of a PV system. I'm going to come back to you. Your house presumably faces relatively south-ish. Ridge runs east-west. Yeah. It's the same with us and our commercial buildings. We want a southerly aspect if we can. They tend to be flatter, commercial buildings, maybe only a 10 to a 15 degree pitch, which it all works perfectly. But when you talk to people about solar, they'll say, yeah, it wants to be 30, 35 degree pitch. Well, you get what you get with a roof that's already in place. If we do it on the ground, then we can pitch them perfectly at 35 degrees and pitch them south because we've got the ground to play with. Ground arrays are subject to planning permission always. Roof-mounted systems are permitted development so long as we leave a metre of clear edge around the outside of the panels, which you saw in the Norwich garden centre slide. There's a nice gap all the way around. So that's why it falls.
Why do you have to have a gap?
Because your planners officers tell us that's again part of national planning policy. We have
But we can, so we will.
just have we have to we have to leave a perimeter all the way around that isn't covered in PV. If we want to cover it, then we have to get planning permission. Yep.
Got to be sensible.
And what we touched on very right at the start of our conversation, your panels are 200 watts. Did you say? Yeah. So the physical size of them hasn't increased, but their output has doubled. And your PV system, 5-6 years old?
10 years old.
10 years old now, yeah. So in 10 years, output's doubled. So we're doing some.
It's perfectly reliable.
Yes.
Never been maintained.
Touch wood.
Keep you guys away from it. It'll
Touch,
go on forever.
touch wood. Yeah.
Stop broken.
Touch wood. And
Before you move on, can I ask? Sorry. Before you move on, can I ask you where they're manufactured?
The panels? The vast majority of them are from China, Korea, and Japan. There are panels made in Europe. I would suggest that they're assembled in Europe. I think everything is assembled. I think we're in a global economy. Some bits of kit come from America and some from the Far East, and they're assembled where they're assembled. Even our American panel manufacturer, we discovered this week that only one of their models is actually manufactured in America. The others are done under joint venture with companies in China, although they're sold as American panels. So is there a reason for you asking?
I don't particularly want to buy Chinese if I can possibly.
Yeah.
If I can
Yeah.
possibly.
No, we can certainly offer you a European assemble assemble panels. It would be the same as if you bought a car made in the UK now.
Speak to me about that. I went. It was a lovely MG. It wasn't a proper MG, but it was a lovely MG. Guess where it was made?
Yeah,
In
China. Yeah.
The Shanghai Motor Company.
Yeah. So yeah.
Country where the
Yeah.
industry's been
Yeah.
So is there a cost difference between a European and Chinese?
Yes, but not that big a difference. No.
The silicon's
Yeah.
made in China.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And yeah.
What are we making then?
Well, we did for a brief time. We had a system. We had a manufacturer in Wales. Sanyo made panels in Wales, in the UK. Again, a microwave factory apparently that they converted into solar panel manufacturer. But this is early days. I haven't heard of another UK manufacturer that started since then.
There's a market there, isn't there?
You would have thought so. You would have thought so. Yeah,
On hold,
yeah. You'd have thought so. Back to my
That's
presentation.
That'd be your second business, couldn't it?
Manufacturing.
Yeah. Supplying yourself.
Do you know how much it costs to build a wafer fab?
Do I want to know? It's all a bit rhetorical.
£2 billion, I
Yeah.
think, is the going price.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
if this chap can invest £2 billion, I'd be very happy.
It might be coming to you for some
Yeah.
loose change.
But the types of inverter you will have a string inverter,
Sure.
yeah, where you group 16 to 20 panels together into a string, and then you feed multiple strings into an inverter. We still do the vast majority of our systems. Actually, it splits near a 50-50 now, but we used to only do string inverters, and now commercial systems, we fit an individual optimizer or inverter runs 2 panels. And the reason for doing that is if you cluster 16 panels together, the worst performing panel brings all the other 15 panels down to the performance of the 16th panel. So if it's got some shade on it, it brings all the others down. If it's got some bird muck on it, it'll bring the others down. They all degrade slightly over time. If one degrades faster than the other, it brings all of them down to that same output. But if you have them just paired or individually, they're treated as an individual item, then the whole system works more efficiently.